Welcome back, one and all, to another day here at the Damage Report. It's a Thursday show, it's a John solo show, and it's special for two reasons. The first is that I forgot to put a title on the stream, but we're rectifying that. Don't worry, somebody's gonna fix it behind the scenes. The other is that it is kind of a holiday. It's celebrated around the country, really around the world, and I think we all know what it is. Producer Mike's birthday. I love that they have the cat visible there, and the cat is soaring above the balloons, but you get a little dragon too. Producer Mike is not only an awesome part of the team and everything, but he's about to, so today's his birthday, tomorrow, 3 years on the Damage Report. And it's both at the same time, like so much else in the current era. It's 3 years that went by fast, but also I thought he'd been around for 4 or 5 years at this point. It's weird to think that it's only been 3 years, but happy birthday, Mike. I hope it's a great day for you. Okay, so we're gonna celebrate. Everybody, please flood the chat with messages for him. And wait, I forgot. No, we did it. What'd I forget? I'm confused by some of the chat that's going on back there. Oh, I did. Okay, I didn't realize we had one for me too, actually. Yeah. Oh my God, they put Hilo and Abby in there. Oh, that's cute. So Mike got an orange dragon, I got a red dragon. That's interesting. What shirt am I wearing in that? Do I own that shirt? I'm very confused. I don't know. I think maybe it was a promo we did. But anyway, glad to see Abby and Hilo there. They were much younger dogs when that happened. But anyway, so I guess happy birthday to me too, but more importantly, producer Mike. And tomorrow is my 2nd anniversary working on this show. So it's a big day for me too. But anyway, thank you all for being here. We do have a lot of news. That's gonna be my birthday present to you, is digging through the hell that is the era we're in. But don't worry, we're gonna be starting off with some good news. We want this to be a positive show, or as positive as it can be. Norfolk says, happy 90th birthday, John. You don't look a day over 30. Well, I'm a couple of days over 30, unfortunately. But anyway, thank you everybody for being here. Okay, so we're gonna jump into a bunch of stuff. It's gonna be fun, it's gonna be awesome, both in the first hour and also in the aftermath. But ahead of that, hit the like button, share the stream, super chats, comments, all that stuff. I'll read some. Maybe I'll even remember to give you a birthday Blue Apron gift card if somebody puts in a good enough comment. But with all that said, why don't we jump into the news?
I'm getting very good polls on crime prevention, on law and order, and on the border. I have to, and I'm starting to get great polls on the economy, which I think
the polls on the economy aren't they're not great.
They should be great.
They should be. So why aren't they? If you believe that,
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Also, I just said they were great, even though I'm now acknowledging they're not great, and I don't even know why they're not great, which, yeah, you do, right? I mean, I know that your brain is riddled with like worms and stuff, but you know, the polls are bad because the economy is bad. The economy is worse than it was when they kicked out the previous guy for having an economy that wasn't good enough. So you should kind of accept that. Like, that's him, I guess, being forced to acknowledge that the polls are bad. But bear in mind, it was amidst all of the lies that I get great poll on Law and Order. You know, when they poll 2,000 people, what do you think about Law and Order? And they're all like, well, it's a pretty good series, I guess. A lot of spinoffs, it seems needless to me. No, that's not, no, you're polling negative on every single topic, even topics where I'll say maybe he should be polling better or whatever. Like, let's say that the most important thing to you is like closing down the border or whatever. Okay, well, he did that, I guess. I don't think it's as important of a priority as he does, but he did that. But he's not even doing good on the border comparatively. And when you talk about immigration, which we will more in depth later on, no, he's doing really bad, and he's doing bad on the economy as well. Now, that does not mean that he is going to acknowledge this truly, substantively learn something from it, express some empathy for the American people. That's not gonna happen. This happened instead.
Americans tell us, we hear this. I mean, we're gonna get into the economy later, but they tell us they don't feel it.
Just so you understand.
Yeah.
I have $18 trillion being invested into the country. Biden had less than $1 trillion for 4 years, and the whole country was going to credit. You know,
when does America feel it?
Do you know that if they won that election, and we won in a landslide, do you know if they won that election, this country was, I think it was finished.
Yeah, we wouldn't have we'd have nothing. It'd be gone. We would just be unincorporated territory or whatever. Like, and look, I feel a little bit bad for the NBC News guy because virtually everything Donald Trump says and everything the NBC News guy says, I want to jump in and be like, come on, dude, like you got to do a better job. But like, how do you pursue the last thing when his response to the last thing is also absolutely mental? So like he says, I'm $18 trillion. And the NBC News guy says, but when do people feel it? Hold up now. Don't just accept the 18 trillion. That's not anything. That's not real. Your answer should have been, I understand that's a number that you're throwing out, but it seems to be based on literally nothing. Even the rest of your administration, which is prone to pro-Trump propaganda, isn't using that number. So he just glosses over it. And like, oh yeah, the country would be done. We'd have no country. This is madness. This is nothing. This is not a guy who is going to acknowledge his faults. It's not a guy who is going to recalibrate, move in a different direction. That's just not how he's going to work. And in this case, look, substantively, that's bad. Politically, kind of good. Because the midterms are shaping up to really suck for the Republicans. And this guy keeps reassuring us they're not gonna do anything to stem the tide of people moving away from their movement. And so let's jump into some of what people say about the economy, because Trump wants you to believe that not only is the economy great now, which it's not, we would have all been on fire collectively if Joe Biden or if Kamala Harris had been elected, which is not how people think it. Now, 53% of voters believe the economy is worse today than it was under Biden. 47% say that it's better. So that is how numbers work out, but also that is a 3-point slide for Trump since just December. Now, look, I think that the numbers should be even more against Donald Trump because I don't believe that there's a case to be made that the economy is better off than it was. I think that it is objectively worse off. The jobs numbers are worse. We're gonna show you the inflation numbers are worse. The tariffs are needless. This isn't good for us, but okay, it takes a little bit of time for people to catch up, and they have caught up. The majority now say the economy is worse off than it was under Biden. And again, they kicked the Democrats out because of how they thought the economy was going under Joe Biden. 63% of those surveyed said the current state of the economy was mostly due to the policies of the Trump administration, while 37% attributed it to how Biden ran the country, an 11-point drop since December. So that's not just a bad status quo, that is movement in the wrong direction for Donald Trump. And again, I'll just remind everyone, I know that people don't love charts as much as I did. We just showed you the inflation numbers going back a number of years. It was improving under Biden and it stopped improving when Donald Trump took over. That is not like, don't argue with me about that. Argue with the chart about that. But anyway, 6 in 10 independents also say the economy is worse under Trump than it was under Biden. And again, he's not going to pivot. He doesn't seem to think that he needs to. So why? Why do people feel this way? That's how they feel. What are the reasons? Well, as I said, inflation is a big part of it. In December, annual inflation hit 2.7%, with food prices up 3.1% and energy costs up 2.3%, according to what's left of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Last February, prices were up 2.8% relative to 12 months prior, while food prices were up 2.6% and energy costs down 0.2%. Okay, so in February of last year, there was inflation, as you can see. There is still inflation. Sorry, Carolyn Leavitt. Sorry, Donald Trump. And also, it's worse than it was last year. Things are not just worse than they were under Biden, they're worse than they were under Trump previously. You can't keep gaslighting us because we can't afford the gaslight anymore. The prices are too high. But they just keep lying and lying and lying. And the thing is, people feel this stuff. It's not abstract, okay? They feel it every day. They feel it with every bill. They feel it every time they go to the grocery store. And especially they feel it, and I've been trying to focus on this recently, they feel it when it comes to healthcare costs, because that is the top household expense the public are currently worried about. In fact, 1 out of 3 Americans are very worried about the cost of healthcare. Because for some reason, we, despite being the best and the brightest and the strongest and the richest country in the world, just can't seem to figure this thing out. I mean, there's only dozens of examples of other countries around the globe that did figure it out. In fact, decades ago with less resources than we have, but they make it work and we, for some reason, can't. But there are people who worry about a lot of things. Food and groceries, that's a quarter of Americans. Quarter of Americans very worried about rent or mortgage. I mean, we're talking about majority numbers for all of this when you include somewhat worried. And this is not the mark of a golden age. It's the exact opposite of it. You do not want people to be like anxiously stressing over the bare minimum foundational stuff. This is not what anxiety should be rested on. You should be able to afford a home and food. You should not worry about getting sick or injured. That's the bare minimum anywhere in the world. We're supposed to be the best, we're supposed to be the strongest, the most respected. This is not how the American people would feel under not just a golden age, silver, copper, whatever you want to call it. This is bad, and it's translating up to how people evaluate Donald Trump. And so, Donald, you say that you don't understand. Maybe start watching our show more. I'll explain it to you. Anyway, when it comes to Trump, I want to remind everyone of this. This is a poll we showed a couple of days ago, I believe. I just like it. So it's not just the policies, it's him too. People do not have confidence in Donald Trump on a number of different measures, including the idea that he would act ethically in office. Only 21% of Americans are very confident he will act ethically in office. And those are, let's just acknowledge it, either the 21% most gullible people that have ever lived on earth, or they're just lying. They know he's not ethical, but they don't care. They either think that other things about him outweigh it, or they like that he's doing unethical stuff. There are some Americans who, for some reason, get off on the idea that he could just steal $10 billion in taxpayer money and give it to himself. I don't know why, but that's what they think. And so, focusing again on the economy, things are not going in the right direction. Inflation is up compared to last year. The US companies have announced the most job cuts for any January since 2009. It's worse than it was in the darkest, dankest depths of the pandemic. That's how bad things are getting. And remember, like doing all the tariffs and stuff was supposed to hurt us economically, but it was supposed to spur job growth because we're supposed to, well, we're not gonna be hiring people abroad, right? So we need to build the factories here, we need to hire people here. Then why is it doing the exact opposite thing? Last month, companies announced over 108,000 job cuts. That itself was a 118% increase from a year earlier back under Joe Biden. The report on Thursday showed that hiring intentions slid 13% from a year earlier to just 5,300 jobs. And that is terrible. And look, I'm sure it's a combination of a lot of things. The economic damage he's doing to corporations, not just in terms of, it's not just that we can't afford things because we have to buy it abroad. Because of all the reciprocal tariffs, our companies are having a much harder time selling things abroad. That hurts them and that trickles down into job cuts and lower hiring. But also remember, some of the stuff about AI replacing jobs, it isn't yet as apocalyptic as some of the belief was a year or two ago, but we are still losing jobs as a result of it, and Donald Trump loves that. Donald Trump wants us to be the best in AI, should kick all these workers out, and all of his buddies, all of his big donors love it too. Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Altman, and all of them love it. Every job that they can kill and replace with one of their AI agents or whatever they consider to be a great thing, and they paid him handsomely to produce that. Well, I was gonna say regulatory environment, but it's a deregulatory environment. In fact, stopping their desires to stop states from regulating AI in literally any way. So look, it's a complicated picture. People hate Donald Trump's policy guts for a lot of reasons, but this is certainly some ones that rank highly. And as I said, it isn't just in the economy though. Let's move now to immigration.
Most Americans say they don't like how you've handled immigration, right? Especially what's happened in Minneapolis. How do you change their minds?
Well, I don't believe the polls, for one thing, because how can you not I saw a poll on the border where I'm at 55%, okay?
The polls show that Americans aren't against the deportations, it's the handling of immigration.
Polls, it depends on the way you ask the question. I saw a poll on the border, I'm at 55%. Well, how can I only be at 55% when everybody agrees that the border is totally, beautifully closed and nobody's coming in unless they come in legally, et cetera. It couldn't be better. I should be at 100%. I don't believe the polls. And some polls, I mean, I could show you polls where I'm polling at 69% popularity, and some polls where I have one at
we'll ask the White House to share that with us.
Yeah. 71%. And then I have polls where I'm at 44% and 42%. The polls are almost dishonest, almost as dishonest as some of the reporters themselves.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree to disagree with the president there, or at least where he's putting the dishonesty. I think the idea that you have polls that you're at 67 or 71%, yeah, I think some polls are dishonest. Or also, no, it's not even that the polls are dishonest. Those don't exist. You don't have a poll. Rasmussen doesn't say you're at 71%. You're literally just making it up because you're a tiny little shriveled up broken man who can't accept that you're not as popular as you'd like to be. And you also can't accept that the reason that you're not as popular as you'd like to be is because of the terrible things you say and the terrible things you do. It's the decisions you make, it's the things that you do to people, and you do it on the economy, you do it on immigration. You're a terrible, awful, no good, very bad person, and that has an effect on the polls. And that does not make it dishonest. It's honest when people take a look at what you're doing and they don't like it. So you're at 55% on the border. I don't even know if that's true. Let's say that it's true. Why might you be at 55% on the border? Well, some people don't think that the border being locked down is the most important thing, especially when it comes with, for instance, a much harder time that a lot of people have filing legitimate grievances and applications for asylum. Maybe it's not just that we want the border shut down. We still want it to be just. We want it to be ethical. We want it to be compassionate. We still want America to be a place that people aspire to come to. And you can brush aside that, oh, they can still come if they're legal. No, you've been cracking down on a whole hell of a lot of that. And all of that is bundled up in people's evaluation of the border and immigration more broadly. Now, some of the evaluations of the border specifically is gonna be based on the fact that people just hate you, sure. But people have legitimate grievances about that too. They might also think that it's not worth the cost. The massive mountain of money that you have set on fire to get what you claim to be a net good for America, which is shutting down immigration. But a lot of people don't necessarily believe that, for better or worse. And you could play devil's advocate at the very least. You could try to understand why people might disagree with you on these things. I could do that in the opposite direction. I'm not gonna waste your time right now, but you should be capable of doing that. And the issue for Trump is that immigration does not begin and end at the border. And by the way, it's actually kind of the farthest thing away from most people's everyday experience of your immigration policy because they don't live near the border. But they might live in a place where they see ICE rampaging through the cities and breaking up families and dragging away kids and gunning Americans down in the streets. And so maybe you want to be a little bit compassionate about the way you speak about that part of it, except that Donald Trump can't even manage that. Take a look.
After the shooting of Renee Good, you said ICE made some mistakes. What were the mistakes?
Well, look, I'm not happy with the two incidents. It's not, it's both of them, not one or the other. He was not an angel, and she was not an angel. You look at some tapes from back, but still, I'm not happy with what happened there. Nobody could be happy, and ICE wasn't happy either.
You mentioned Renee Good and Alex Pretti not being angels. Do you think any of that justified what happened to them, though?
No, I don't. It should have not happened. It was a very sad, to me, it was a very sad incident, two incidents. And, they mentioned the one now, they don't mention the other. Well, I think they were both sad. And, who feels worse about it than anybody? The people of ICE.
No, I don't think that they feel worse than anybody. And when the guy asks you, do you think that justifies them dying, and you say no, then why'd you say it? Why'd you say that they're not angels? Why was that so important to you to point out that they're not angels? And when I see that, I don't just want to answer a poll negatively towards you. I know that a lot of people will, and that will filter into the polls, and you'll be all surprised about why it is that you're polling so badly. That's not enough for me. What I want to do is I want to say to you, but if they call me to answer a poll, I can do that. I suppose I could answer a poll. And that's how I feel. That's how a lot of people feel. A lot of people are desperate for something to happen because of the insane, violent things that you say. And not just you, we'll get to Vance in a little bit. But as all of this is happening, as people have turned against ICE, thankfully, finally, belatedly turned against ICE as they hate his immigration policy that should embolden the Democrats if literally anything was going to embolden the Democrats. But it's not. They're already backtracking a little bit. And so we had this, Hakeem Jeffries had said, I think there's agreement that no masks should be deployed in an arbitrary and capricious fashion, as has been the case, horrifying the American people. But this is what Schumer said. Immigration authorities need identification and no masks, except in extraordinary and unusual circumstances. No. Fine, look. If I thought they were actually concerned about COVID or some other transmissible respiratory illness, sure, I'd let them wear the masks in limited cases, but we know they don't actually care about that. I feel like the Venn diagram of active ICE agents and COVID denialists is a perfect goddamn circle. But anyway, if you open up that exception, they're gonna use it. They're gonna claim the entire thing is an unusual and extraordinary circumstance because Antifa is gonna dox us or whatever. So God damn it, Schumer, you haven't delivered anything and you're already bending. You're already broken at this point. My God, he is so goddamn back at this and he's bad at this and he's backing up even though some Republicans are acknowledging that they shouldn't be masked. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick said they need body cameras, they need to remove masks, they need proper training, they need to be conducting operations that are consistent with their mission, which is honestly a stronger stance than most of the Democrats are taking on this. And so, look, they've come together with their supposed list of requirements, although again, as you can see in their public statements, they're already signaling that they don't actually need all of this. So here's their 10 demands that they want. We're not gonna read through all of them. We've covered some of it before. Now look, I think ICE should be yeeted into the sun. I think that every one of these people should be fired. I think that they should be immediately disarmed before that. That said, look, if they were going to actually deliver all of these things, the various guardrails and the ID and the no masks and protecting particular locations and no racial profiling and the actually following the supposed use of force training that you had. If they did all of that, then we would not have nearly as big of a problem. The issue is they're not going to. Because, and I will remind you, they're already breaking the rules. They're already breaking the law. They are not scared of the rules and they're not scared of the law because Pam Bondi and Donald Trump and Todd Blanche and all of them have made very clear to them that they're above the law. Stephen Miller literally says it on the news basically every night. And so I don't understand why I would get all jazzed up about more layers of regulations and laws for them to blatantly and wantonly break. That's what they're doing. We don't just need more rules, we need to enforce the rules that we have. And I don't believe that Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer are going to do that. I just don't. Okay, I think that we should take our first break. When we come back, we have a little bit more positive news. We'll be back. I was muted, right? I know I do it a lot accidentally. I was a little bit worried, but anyway. They're no angel. No, they actually, he's literally a VA nurse. He literally died protecting a woman. I don't believe in angels, and by the way, neither does Donald Trump. But if they existed, kind of feel like he'd have a pretty good shot at it. Certainly better than Donald Trump, certainly better than me. Renee Good, what did they do? What did they do? We are constantly forced to just watch as a dark carnival of the most grotesque monsters ever are paraded before us in politics, in the economy, in culture, the influencers, the right-wing media. But Alex and Renee aren't angels? Jesus. Okay, so let's get to our comments. Did I load this? Let's see. Cabbage says, can you imagine the rhetoric if the economy was better? Yeah, I mean, honestly, if the economy was better, then he might be able to get away with a lot more of this stuff. That's the dark thing. I think that some people, if they didn't have these economic anxieties, might not pay as much attention to some of the stuff that they don't directly see. Unfortunately for Trump, he's not gonna make a good economy. He's just not gonna do it. Anyway, Alex is on fire, says happy birthday, Jono. Thank you, I appreciate it. Kevin Norton says happy birthday from Connecticut. Oh, another Connecticuter, thank you, I appreciate that. Tom Zawaki says happy birthday. Remember, at this age, it's time to taper off from the Pop-Tarts and increase the prune intake. Have they ever made a prune Pop-Tart? I'm guessing no. Man, does any fruit have a worse brand identity than prunes? Because there could be a world where some people just like prunes and eat them, but they really got wrapped up in the whole butt thing. Poor prunes. Anyway, Luck Dragon says, I'll never forget John's birthday because it's my sister's birthday too. Well, happy Luck Dragon's sister's birthday. Zach Weiler says, oh, did everyone see Jessica Burbank on the watch list yesterday? It was great to see her again. Oh, I didn't know that he did a show with her. That's awesome. I'm talking, by the way, Jessica Burbank has announced that she's gonna be doing a Andor rewatch podcast. And I'm trying to see if it might work out time-wise to appear on that, because I'm obviously a big nerd, so that would be a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. Pagan Dragon says, we love you, producer Mike. You make the show possible. That's awesome, I love that. Galfar says, you can leave producer Mike and John happy B-Day wishes, memes, gifts, and other stuff over in this thread in the TYT Discord. Yeah, if you'd like to get involved in the TYT Discord, by the way, Galfar can provide information on the Twitch stream about that. Okay, let's see. Oh, there's a lot of subbing going on and gifting. CDN Northstock Dad, thank you for gifting a sub. Kelly K04W, Arosa, CC Bruja gifted 10 memberships. That's super nice. Thank you to all of you doing the gifting. I really do appreciate it. Kenzie Page has been a member for 45 months. Let's see, Brett the Bulldog, member for 39 months, says, happy birthday, John. Please help boost the next No Kings protest in March. So I don't know the exact date of that. I will have to look, but I've participated in the last two. I plan to participate in this one, and we will definitely provide more information when we can. Gabby says, John, there's a universe where prunes are virtuous and celebrated, or have you forgotten Worf's favorite drink? That vaguely tickles something in my mind. I sort of remember. It's been a very long time since I've rewatched Next Generation. I need to do that. It's just my go-to is Voyager. That's just what I throw on. But I do need to rewatch Next Gen at some point. Okay, let's see. YTP renewed member 34 months says muted lines of dialogue. It's like Sonic X's Natsu no High scene all over again. I don't get the reference, sorry. Okay, everybody, lots more comments to get to, and I will, but I've already put us behind, so I'm gonna try to catch us up, probably unsuccessfully. Let's jump into this. If it wasn't of the most dire of importance, Trump's latest comments on the election would arguably be funny, as so many of his comments would be if they didn't affect our lives. But here's the thing, he's making clear once again, as he has in past elections, that it's incredibly unlikely that he accepts the results of the election if they go against him. Take a look.
Will you trust the results of the midterms if Republicans lose control of Congress?
I will, if the elections are honest. Look, I want the last one that wants to complain. We just had a great election. I believe there was cheating. I think there was cheating.
Well, speaking of,
he's the last one that wants to complain. Now, allow me to complain. There was cheating in the election that I won. Yeah, no, there was definitely lots of cheating. Yeah, that's the Democrats do it. You know what? They engage in a little bit of cheating, not enough to have power or control things. They just do it for the love of the game. They don't want to actually be in charge of things, choose Supreme Court justices, pass legislation. They just want to cheat around the edges and then hand the presidency and the White House over to you, because that makes a lot of sense. No, he's saying now what he said every time. I'll accept the results if nobody cheats. Which means if he wins, or actually considering that last video, he won't even accept it if he wins. And I'll remind everyone, I went back, I'm not gonna show you all the clips and everything. In advance of the 2020 election, he was saying this stuff constantly. And what happened when he lost? He tried to overturn the apple cart. He tried to take over the country. He tried to reject the results of the election. He is making clear to you that he's gonna do the exact same thing. And I have an idea of one of the claims that he might make, that the election is unfair. Remember the whole gambit that he had where we're gonna redistrict and we're gonna do a little bit of gerrymandering so we can maintain our hold on power even as our numbers plummet? Yeah, well, that isn't working out so well for him. And the Democrats, of course, have responded in kind, as in California, where I'm at, we've done some redistricting as well. And they were kind of hoping that the Supreme Court would swoop in and save them. And we have to acknowledge the SCOTUS, in this case, not as openly corrupt and partisan as they could be, because they have upheld the California map, which will now go forward, and likely something like 5 Republican seats are just Thanos, thanks to what Donald Trump was pushing for. And that is great news. Now, the right wing is freaking out about that. This is an article that's up right now on The Blaze. Rigged. Supreme Court allows California to use Democrats' anti-Trump congressional map. So you can see there's a little bit of a spin on that headline. It's not just redistricting, which everyone does. It's rigged. It's anti-Trump. And when I saw that, I had this experience. I was like, you know what? The Blaze does articles. I wonder what they said when the Supreme Court ruled on the Texas map. And so I looked it up. And you're gonna notice a bit of a difference between these two. So when it's California, it's rigged. It's an anti-Trump map. Before it was Supreme Court allows Texas redistricting map for midterm elections, liberals dissent. Oh, it's so casual. It's so blasé. And you might think, well, different times, different authors. Nope. Can we bring that back up again? It's the exact same guy who wrote both articles. They are so blatantly tribal and partisan. And here's the thing, I'm not even saying you have to treat both of those cases the same, because they're not actually the same. We allowed the people to vote here in California. In Texas, they just put it into effect. And they did it directly in response to Donald Trump saying, steal me some seats. California did it to balance the scales. I think ours is much more defendable, and yet they're acting as if ours is somehow the more offensive. So why are the Republicans already claiming that the midterms are rigged and the Democrats are gonna cheat, even though the Congress is Republican and the SCOTUS is Republican and the White House is held by a Republican? Well, it's because they're looking at the polling and they know that things are not working out well for them. And they know furthermore that the redistricting that they chose to do might actually backfire and hurt them. You combine those two things, it's not looking good for them, as will be described in this clip by Harry Enton.
Now we're looking at a huge Democratic rebound. In 2024, Kamala Harris won New York by just 13 points. Not a very wide margin at all. But take a look here for New York. Look at that wide, huge advantage. That is doubling the margin that Kamala Harris had back in 2024. They're up by 27 points. This is actually a relatively small margin for Democrats. She won by 20 points out on the West Coast in the big state of California. But take a look at the 2026 House polling. Again, Democrats, a big rebound. This looks a whole heck of a lot more like 2020 than it does like 2024, with Democrats up by 28 points. These are the types of numbers that should really worry Republicans. Okay, Republicans' margins in Texas. Trump won it by 14 points. But look at the generic ballot, the generic House ballot. Now we're talking about a Republican advantage of just 1, 2 points. That was a big influence in terms of what happened in Texas 9. Yeah, they got a good candidate, but it was also the environment has shifted so much to the left, right? This looks a whole heck of a lot like what we saw in 2018 when Republicans barely won that House vote. You put this together with this, and all of a sudden you can see how Democrats can really bring out a lot of seats from the big states.
That is pretty amazing and very well presented. I think they should have like a counter on the side of the screen that's like linked up to his like Apple Watch fitness data for how many calories he burns as he's doing all of his gesticulations. But anyway, that's a big shift in a year. And again, I will remind everyone, they did the redistricting in Texas, but also in other states based on assumptions about voter behavior that were set in 2024, but the map does not look like 2024 anymore, and the populace doesn't think and act like they did in 2024. And I love that this might bite them in the ass. Thank God. Maybe that will be enough to counteract the various efforts that the Republicans are doing to try to rig things, stealing the voter data, meddling in Georgia, like Bannon said, probably having ICE ring polling places and all of that stuff. In any event, that was the good news. Let's turn back to being mad once again, starting with this.
Did you plan to apologize to the family of Alex Pretti? For what?
For labeling him an assassin with ill intent.
Well, again, I just described to you what I said about Alex Pretti, which is that he's a guy who showed up with ill intent to an ICE protest.
No, but if it is determined, if it's determined that his civil rights were violated by this FBI investigation, will you apologize to that?
So, if this hypothetical leads to that hypothetical leads to another hypothetical,
it's a real case.
Will I do a thing? And again, like I said, we're going to let the investigation.
However much you hate JD Vance, you should think about it for a little bit, because I think you should hate him far more. He is a reprehensible little lizard. He is a tiny little cockroach, a pathetic little fake half man. He's so utterly disrespectable. Like, you should have so much more disdain than you already do. And don't worry, as he appears on your screen more, you'll have plenty of opportunities to hate his frickin' guts. So he's speaking there with the Daily Mail's Philip Nieto, asking some good questions, by the way. And the way that he weasels out of being an actual adult, an actual mature person, an actual man is so gross to a person who's mature, to an actual man. So are you gonna apologize for what? And then he smirks. He has his little smirk. You know goddamn well what you. I don't want to constantly mute myself to go off, so I'll just push forward. But you know what? So if it's found that his civil liberties were violated, well, if a hypothetical and another hypothetical, well, he gave you one hypothetical actually. It was just the investigation. By the way, you don't need the hypothetical. You said he was an assassin. He wasn't an assassin. Apologize for what you said. That is not a high expectation. That is not a high bar to have for a person in public life. That's not a high bar to have for literally anyone. I expect more of my daughter, who's 2.5 years old, that if you say something grotesque, you apologize for it, JD Vance. He wasn't an assassin. There was no reason to believe he was an assassin. You have smeared a good American citizen who died protecting a woman. Apologize now for the grotesque thing that you said. Apologize more later after the investigation, whatever, sure. But apologize now for the grotesque thing that you said that you won't even acknowledge that you said. Oh, you were puffed up and so happy about yourself to say it at the time. And then, it blew up in your face and you look like a goddamn fascist monster. So now you're running from it. I said he had ill intent or whatever. No, he didn't have ill intent, but that's also not what you said. You said he was an assassin. You pretended he was a terrorist who wanted to murder people. Apologize for that, or earn the scorn that is already being directed towards you. And then to say, as he does at the end, I don't think it's smart to prejudge the investigation. I don't think it's fair to those ICE officers. Yeah, we really need to be fair to the murderers in this case. So don't prejudge the investigation lest you be cruel to the people who shot him 10 times in the back. But he can prejudge the victim and assert with no evidence, with no information, that he's an assassin. And then when he does that, he doesn't even have the good graces to apologize. And I'll remind everyone of a couple of different things. One, he's not just your normal spineless politician. He is a Christian. Oh, he's filled with the love of the Lord. Oh, he loves the Bible. He loves the Old Testament. He loves the New Testament. It's so important to him. Oh, his religious values, until he smears an innocent nurse being gunned down on the street as an assassin. And then there's no Jesus there. There's no commandments affecting his behavior. He doesn't feel like he needs to apologize for that. I'll do what I think I need to do so I don't turn off the fascistic incels I desperately need to vote for me in the 2028 Republican primary for president. That's the only thing directing him. Jesus got nothing to do with it. The Holy Spirit ain't even in the room. He cares about Nick Fuentes 1,000,000 times more than he cares about God or about Mary or the disciples, whatever. He doesn't care about them. He doesn't know them. The fact, by the way, and he's not the only one. Donald Trump also pretends to be a Christian, but generally JD Vance tries a little bit harder. So why don't you act like it? Why don't you act like you've ever heard the Sermon on the Mount? Why don't you act like you're vaguely familiar with Jesus? But of course, he can't do that. And this photo, I'm gonna show you this tweet. I'll read the tweet, but also see the photo. That is who JD Vance is. Asked to do a simple thing, which is apologize for smearing a person based on no information. For what? I'm gonna smear a little bit. And as John says, look at the smug, condescending smirk after he says for what? He's so proud of himself for the performance. Yeah, so proud of himself. And by the way, like, he's been called, I saw in response to this, the most repulsive person in American politics. And I think maybe, like, I know that seems kind of crazy with Elon Musk and with Donald Trump, and they're worse than JD Vance in some ways. But like Donald Trump, I don't think he feels like he buys it more. JD Vance doesn't. JD Vance is acting, and he's acting like a disgusting smear of crap on the bottom of America's shoe. That's what he's at. That's what he chooses to be. He wakes up and he works himself up into being the most disgusting person you're forced to pay attention to. And I can't wait to watch him lose in 2028. And honestly, the only thing that I'm undecided on is I don't know which would be better, to watch him lose the general election or to watch him get beat in the primary. I don't know, but I'm ready for either. In any event, let's jump into one more clip.
You know, I was in the West Wing and somebody sent me where he was talking to Caitlin Collins, who's the CNN anchor. And I have like a decent relationship with Caitlin Collins, which is unusual given that she's from CNN. But the president, she's asking a question. The president says, "Why don't you ever smile?"
Yeah.
And it's actually like so perceptive. Even if you're asking a tough question, even if you take your job very seriously, like why does it always have to be so antagonistic?
Well, I laughed because I saw online everybody was calling him sexist for saying that. And I literally said the same thing about Caitlin Collins a year ago on my show. She never smiles. Every once in a while, you have to smile. Roger Ailes used to tell us that. Every once in a while, you can remember to smile, show the viewers that you have a heart.
Have some fun.
Yeah, have some fun, Caitlin Collins. Have some fun as you ask about the fact that we're not getting any justice for the victims of sexual predation. Have some fun. Smile as you talk about the fact that these children who were raped by billionaires are never, ever going to see anything even approaching justice. Why aren't you enjoying this more, Caitlin Collins? Look into the piggy face of the sexual predator who's occupying the Oval Office as an invading force. Look into the face of that sexual abuser. Ask your stupid question about the kids who were raped, but give us a little smile about it. Why aren't you enjoying your job more? And look, Vance is pathetic there. Utterly pathetic with his, he laughs to Megyn Kelly's thing. It's a genuine reaction he had. He's a real person just like you and me. So he's pathetic, he's disgusting, he's grotesque and all that. But let's not give a pass to Megyn Kelly there, who's like, I heard that Donald Trump was being misogynistic, and I just want to assure you, I hate women at least as much as Donald Trump. Please keep listening to my podcast. Yeah, Caitlin Collins, smile more. I, as a woman, love when men tell us to do that. Please keep giving me your money. Don't listen to someone else. Please don't. I hate women. They suck. They should all be caged. I don't care. Say, you can put me in a cage as long as I have my microphone. And as long as you'll give me money, I'll be in whatever cage you want. That's Megyn Kelly. By the way, she ends that saying, that's what I was told by Roger Ailes. You gotta smile. Roger Ailes was accused of sexual harassment by literally dozens of women at Fox News. And by the way, I can't necessarily speak for Megyn Kelly, but there is no way he didn't sexually harass her too. And that's who she's like, yeah, learn from the sexual harasser. That's the defense that she lodges. And I'll remind everyone, by the way, Megyn Kelly was the person who not so long ago was like, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't a pedophile. He was only raping 15-year-olds who looked younger. He didn't rape an 8-year-old or whatever. And I, Megyn Kelly, don't think there's anything wrong or suspicious, nor should be illegal about raping a 15-year-old. In fact, I will use my time on air to defend the elites who are raping kids, because there are technically younger kids, so is it really a big deal? That is Megyn Kelly. And again, like with Vance, however much you hate her, you don't hate her nearly enough. She works overtime to earn your scorn. Don't be stingy with it. Ladle it out on top of her. In any event, we are rapidly running out of time because I can't seem to catch up. Let's go to our second break. We got more after this. These people. Oh, they get together, they do their little interview. We're in the Oval Office, we're serious people. I'm a serious journalist, you're a serious vice president. Oh yeah, no, I was in the West Wing where I have my desk and I have papers on the desk and I'm a serious person. God, these people, like there's There's imposter syndrome, and then there's the dark mirror of it, where they dwell, the dark mirror lands of imposterhood. All these people just occupying these spots. You think JD Vance does like 10 minutes of serious work or thought or anything like that? My God, my God. Anyway, let's jump into some comments. Let's see. Swedish, some of this text is very small from here. Swedish member for 16 months says, gratis John and Mike on your birthdays. Also, wasn't Nina supposed to be on today? The people demand answers. Yes. So Nina, Senator Nina Turner was supposed to be on, and she just wasn't able to today. I'm sure she has a million obligations. She's very busy traveling, doing events and other shows and stuff like that. I'm sure something happened. Okay, let's see. Pitchforks Dragon says a super chat. Happy birthday, John. JR says, hey, thank you. That's super nice of you. Leo says that muting was beautiful. I wish this $5 went straight to your Pop-Tart fund, but alas, keep shouting and take my money. Thank you. Again, the super chat money does not go directly to me, but if it did, I would put it into our funds for research and development of the world's first ever prune Pop-Tart. Prune protein Pop-Tart. I don't want RFK Jr. to shut us down. Neil Whittington says in super chat, Trump's Gestapo needs to be defunded and abolished, not defended. It's being defended, don't worry. I agree. Let's see, thank you for your message, Gabby. I saw that one. Yeti Dragon says in super chat, happy birthday, John. And shout out to your birthday twin, my amazing, beautiful, and talented wife, Novia. Well, that's awesome, happy birthday. This is an oddly packed day for birthdays. Mine and Mike's, your wife, there was another person's sister, all in one day. A busy day. Okay, let's see. B Sunsbo says in super chat, John, don't forget Schumer, consult with the Baileys. That's a reference to the like fictional people that he talks about in stories all the time that don't actually exist, but they exist in his head. I don't know. I think John Oliver talked about it. Anyway, Queen Victoria says in super chat, happy birthday, John. I've watched TDR religiously for the last decade. You're easily my favorite commentator. Well, that's super nice, thank you. The world needs your natural kindness, curiosity, compassion for women and queer people, justly applied ire and definition of true masculinity. That is probably too nice of you, but thank you for the comment. I do appreciate that. Particularly my birthday, thank you. Think Rinks is with us on Twitch, which is super nice, thank you for that. Griff Barry has been over on Twitch for 40 months, thank you. Punk Jazz Dragon for 67 months. Socrates Bartender for 41, thank you. Go for the Knicks, been here for a 55 stream streak. Damn, thank you. Franklin Sharpslicer says, happy birthday, old fart. Thanks. Angie Fepper's been here for 62 months. Says last month my electric bill was over $700. This month it was $800, and we have no idea why. I could speculate as to why. We've talked about some stories related to that. I'm forgetting now. I cannot believe that I'm forgetting his name. So John Green is the author, and his brother is a YouTuber. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, he did a video about the rising cost of electricity, and he focused in on what was in the big beautiful bill that is going to make electricity even more expensive. It was a great breakdown. I actually kind of want to cover it on the show because I don't think we focused on that much back then. But anyway, definitely go take a look. Okay, everybody, more news coming, but first I want to remind you about a partnership that TYT is doing with Noble Mobile, the only wireless plan that pays you to use your phone less. Under normal circumstances, on their Noble plan, you get unlimited data for just $50 a month, but right now it's just $10 a month, which is absurd. Plus, the unused data that you don't use gets you cash back, and you can find out all about it at tyt.com/switch. And with that, let's talk about this. In one of the weirdest updates on the Epstein files, Zohran Mamdani is now being attacked for being in the files. And if that sounds stupid to you, if it sounds fake to you, that's because it is fake, and it's even dumber than it sounds. So what right-wing conspiracy theorists are saying online is that they believe that Mamdani is secretly Jeffrey Epstein's child. And you'll be so very surprised to find out who's leading this online. It's Alex Jones who says a major investigation is underway to determine if reports are true that the current New York City mayor Zohran Mamdani is the biological son of Jeffrey Epstein. And yeah, major investigation, which is what? He's not in the government. Is he like, are his producers looking into it? Well, if they are, they're not looking hard because those images are obviously generated by AI. There are literally watermarks on the images he shared on Twitter identifying them as being AI generated. So I have a feeling this investigation's probably not gonna turn up much because your initial evidence is generated by AI. And also the idea that Zohran Mamdani is his son is the dumbest thing he's said. And he has said some of the dumbest things I've ever heard. So no, it's not true, but that isn't stopping many of them from spreading it. This random person who pays the richest man in the world $8 a month to be on Twitter says somebody has to say it. There is a very real possibility Zohran Mamdani is Jeffrey Epstein's biological son. So first of all, no, there isn't. And also, let's say that this was right and that it wasn't AI generated and he was actually his son. What do you think that means about Zohran Mamdani? He would be a victim in that case, not a perpetrator. Why would that reflect poorly on him? But again, it doesn't matter. It's just, look, here's what is actually going on. Alex Jones has created a brand for himself where he questions authority and he questions the status quo and he questions the elites and he protects the kids and he takes down the pedophiles. But oopsie doopsie, his favorite people in the world are those elites. They do control the status quo and they are the pedophiles, or at the very least those who are covering up the crimes of the pedophiles. And so that puts him in a really tough position because Alex Jones can't talk about Donald Trump being in the files. He can't break all of those down, the thousands and thousands of appearances of Donald Trump, who, by the way, I think this is amazing. Trump appears in the Epstein files more times than the word Harry appears in all of the Harry Potter books combined. It's pretty bad for Donald Trump, but Alex Jones can't talk about that. He has no integrity, so he needs to find something to talk about. So maybe if Grok did an image of Zohran Mamdani as Epstein's son, that makes me look like I'm still questioning things, I guess, but you're not. You're a hack, actually. You're a conspiracist hack. And as Mighty Keith points out, you are allergic to not getting sued for misinformation. So I don't think he's gonna be sued. I don't think that Zohran Mamdani would do that, but I wouldn't mind seeing it again. And by the way, this isn't even the first like obvious AI slop being produced to, delude people about what's in the Epstein files. In March of last year, researchers debunked a photo purporting to depict Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, actor Tom Hanks, and Ghislaine Maxwell all being on the beach together as AI generated. Again, there are so many actual photos and so many actual utterly reprehensible emails that the only reason you would put a second of your precious time into creating new fake ones is if you desperately want to distract attention away from the real ones. And that is what Alex Jones is doing. But I don't want to just fill your mind with misinformation. I want to give you some actual information, which they're also trying to distract from. So Zohran Mamdani was inaugurated as the mayor of New York City. And as you all know, instantly New York fell into apocalypse. It's all ruined, the skyscrapers have fallen, the Sharia law rules supreme or whatever, except that I'm being sarcastic there. Do you know what actually happened? In the first full month of him being mayor, New York City set a record low for January shootings and victims, according to the NYPD. Now, again, is that directly because of Zohran Mamdani? Probably at most in part, but it definitely doesn't look like the end of the world there as they implied that it would be. And so you can add this to the never-ending list of predictions Republicans confidently made about how terrible things would be if things ever changed. Like, you know how marriage was gonna be utterly destroyed if gay people could get married, and now they've been able to do it for literally years, and I don't think it's had any effect whatsoever on straight marriage, but oops, whatever. We were able to stop it from happening for a little while by fear-mongering about it. They did the same thing with Zohran Mamdani, and the truth is, things seem to be going just fine in New York. Anyway, with that, okay, which of these two? I guess we could do either one. Let's continue on as we are. We'll close out the hour with this. Let's jump into it. A grown man on video effed around and found out when he decided to get into a fight with literal high schoolers. So what happened is you had this group of students, as many are, doing a walkout of their school to protest ICE. And so they did that. And this 45-year-old full grown adult man, Chad Michael Watts, decided he was going to leave his vehicle because he was so enraged by what he was seeing by these kids protesting, get out, get in their face, start getting in a verbal altercation with a female student, and then it got physical when the girl was pushed to the ground. Take a look. And so you're seeing the footage here. It unfortunately doesn't have any audio, but so he decides, I guess, to push the girl down because he doesn't like a thing that she said. Remember, these men seem to be driven by nothing more than a need to have women show them respect. How dare you protest? How dare you say anything to me? That's my speculation. We don't see the initial part of the altercation on video, but in any event, when it got physical, it didn't go well for him. And honestly, I don't know why he would believe that it would. Yeah, they're smaller than you, but there's a lot of them, and they're definitely in better physical shape than you. Kids are running around all day, man. People always talk about, like, would you rather fight like a horse-sized duck or like a bunch of like duck-sized horses? Like, it doesn't matter how small it is. If there's enough, they can take you down. And they in fact did. And that wasn't the end of his troubles. He was arrested nearly a day after the incident and charged with 2 counts of assault causing bodily injury. There's an investigation going on, but they did determine that he was the primary aggressor in the physical altercation. It's possible that the kids yelled at him first, which is, by the way, what kids do. But he's the one who chose to get out of his car. They didn't drag him out. He's the one that chose to walk up to a group of high schoolers just exercising their constitutional rights. And he's the one, evidently, that decided to make it physical. And so whatever consequences come of that, he asked for them, okay? Now that video of him being beaten up by a bunch of kids, that exists forever on the internet. And look, I would assume that this has played poorly for him in his social group. I don't know what his job is. I imagine this isn't going to play well for him there either. But these are the choices that you're making. You might like you see a protest and you don't like it. You don't have to get out of your car. You don't have to interact with them at all. I was at the UT Austin. I went to graduate school there, and there was not a day where on the main quad, there wasn't a couple of zonked out weirdos with big old signs of aborted fetuses or whatever, yelling to people about repenting and everything. Do you know how many seconds of dialogue I had with them in the 5 years or whatever I was there? 0, because there's no need to, there's no point to. Just don't talk to them if you don't like it. But that's not enough for these people. They have to exert their will. I don't know his politics, although one can speculate, but it feels like they think the very idea that there are people who have not just laid down and taken what is being done to this country is not acceptable, and it needs to end. Having the power is not enough. I want the power, and I want everyone else to shut up about it as I exercise that power. I can't speak for him individually, but that's what it feels like socially is going on. And I will end with a statement from the DA of the county saying, no matter one's political views, an adult bears a clear responsibility to exercise restraint, especially in the presence of children. Violence or intimidation directed at a minor, particularly during a lawful, peaceful demonstration, has no place in a constitutional republic that depends on the rule of law rather than force. And I love that those kids defended each other. I love that this movement that purports to want to like save the children is actually punching the kids in the face. The ones who say that, they want to save women are gunning down those who are actually defending women. It is so deeply ironic, and I wish that they could all just take 10 minutes or so to think about where their movement has gotten to. In any event, that's going to have to be it for the first hour of the show. We have way more to talk about on the other side of the aftermath, so don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back to the Aftermath, one and all. Thank you for being here. We've got a lot more news to jump into, but first, don't forget about our sponsor, Noble Mobile. Save money by using your phone less and get unlimited data for just $50 a month at 2it.com/switch. And with that, some messages. Cursed INFP says in a super chat, happy birthday, Mike and John. Much love. Thank you. That's super nice of you. I appreciate it. Optimus Prime Dragon says in a super chat, happy birthday, John. Also Connecticut. Pizza, big fan. I do like the pizza of Connecticut. I think it's underrated. And by the way, I see the comments in Twitch and YouTube as well about it. So thank you. I do appreciate that. Let's see. Brickhouse Mama says, it was because of Chad why I went to go watch my kids walk out yesterday. Also to take him home me afterwards since the schools don't let them back in. So that makes total sense. After that fight, like God only knows what crazy people will do. So probably for the best that you did watch them. Curse INFP, member for 22 months, says, I am so sick of the guardians of pedophiles, GOP. We're all not mad enough. I am so mad, I'm in tears. It is, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have just, I don't have the vocabulary to describe the level of shame and rage for what's happened to our country in some cases. Like there's a lot of stuff that's really bad, but like the way the Republicans did not turn against Trump after the coup attempt, the way that they utterly surrendered on COVID, the way that they're just watching the cover up of the Epstein files and basically doing nothing about it. Like these are beyond the normal level of tribalism or partisanship or hypocrisy or whatever. Like this is like cosmic level. Like how have we gotten to this place? And so, yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree. Okay, with that said, let's turn to some good news, which will mostly come in the form of mocking the struggles of people we hate. As is so often the case, let's jump into this. Bad news for Elon Musk. A judge has ruled that he can, in fact, be hauled in to do a deposition to answer questions about his role in dismantling the US Agency for International Development for his role as, the head of the DOGE back last year. So they destroyed that organization with basically no due diligence whatsoever. That is an incredibly consequential thing to have done, and he will now have to do a deposition where he's asked tough questions about that. This is US District Judge Theodore Schwang, who wrote that there was no alternative to the depositions, citing plaintiffs' inability to obtain information through documents, since so much of what DOGE did was just do whatever the hell you want, or through lower-ranking officials whose deposition requests went unanswered. Chuang also pointed to earlier rulings finding that Musk made decisions to dismantle USAID despite lacking formal authority or official approval, which, by the way, you could apply that to so many other things, but sure, let's start with USAID. And if you're not, like you weren't really paying attention when this was going on or the case that's proceeding, here's a few of the important facts that you need to bear in mind. So USAID's former workforce of 10,000 people managed some $43 billion in appropriations and assisted approximately 130 countries with disaster relief and economic development. That's sort of the stakes. Programs prevented an estimated 91 million deaths over the past 2 decades, including 30 million children. And a study looked into it and said that getting rid of USAID could contribute to more than 14 million deaths over just the next 4 years, roughly a third of which would be children under 5 years old. It is not exaggerating to say that Elon Musk doing what he did will kill millions of children a year. That's what they're gonna do. And is it better or worse whether Elon Musk was aware of that? That he knew that he was consigning millions of kids to needless deaths and then decided to do it anyway, to not even save money. I'll remind you, they did all these cuts. They didn't save money. The government spent more money last year than it did the year before that. Or is it worse if he killed him without even looking into it? I don't even need to know what literally thousands of career professionals who've worked their entire lives do. I don't need to know what the programs are for. I don't need to know what the pros and cons are. I'm just gonna do it. Either way, considering the stakes, to me, I think to a lot of reasonable people, he should be behind bars for what he did. I don't have the youthful optimism I once had to assume that that will actually happen, but at the very least, if we can get this deposition, there could maybe be some hard questions. Maybe he'll perjure himself, remains to be seen. As for right now, neither he nor the State Department or the DOJ responded to a request, request for comments from Axios. They're not going to say literally anything. Why would they have to respond to the media in any of this? And I'll just remind everyone, the entire stakes in this, the $43 billion that USAID was in charge of, that determined whether tens of millions lived or died, and all the projects they do across most of the countries in the world, is just a tiny, tiny fraction of the net worth of Elon Musk. Because he made a car once and not so much anymore. And he hyped up a tunnel, and he hyped up a train, and he hyped up a flamethrower, and he hyped up going to Mars, and now he's hyping up doing data centers in space, and he's hyping, and oh, you're gonna be riding around in a robotaxi, and someday I'm gonna make a robot. And so we all decide he should be worth more than virtually everyone else combined. That's the decision that we have made as a society. And then after that, he lets us know that he doesn't even really enjoy it. He posted this just yesterday on Twitter. Whoever said money can't buy happiness really knew what they were talking about, with a sad face. And look, I don't know what that's about. That could be about a million different things. And he's probably trolling us anyway. But if I could have one thing for my birthday, I just hope that he's as sad as he implies there that he is, because he deserves sadness. He deserves depression and anxiety. He deserves to constantly want to be more than he can possibly be and never actually reach it. He deserves all of the worst things in life, because if the money thing is actually not buying him his happiness, which I don't think it is, I have an easy solution, Musk. Give your money away. You could do that. You could go and spend time with your 35 kids or whatever. You could do that. Maybe that would bring you some happiness. I don't know, you could read a goddamn book. You could get a goddamn hobby. You could do the normal stuff that people do for some sort of life satisfaction, and not just inflict yourself on us and on companies that formerly did good work, and you just gradually destroy them over time. Those are some ideas. Now, granted, I'm not a genius like Elon Musk, but I also feel like on average, I'm quite a bit happier than Elon Musk. Maybe there's a lesson in that. In any event, speaking of terrible rich people, let's talk about Melania. So you've probably already heard at this point that the Melania movie is going to lose a whole ton of money. But what you may not have heard about yet is that the good chunk of the money that it did actually make might not have been real. It might not have been authentic demand from Melania-loving moviegoers to see her movie. It might have just been rigged, as so much in right-wing media is. So let's go through all the numbers, starting with what we think we know about the money that it made on opening day. So in the US, the film exceeded predictions, grossing $2.9 million from almost 1,800 cinemas, but was still obviously a financial flop. It was ultimately beaten at the box office by Iron Lung, an independently financed horror film made by YouTuber Mark Fishbach. By the way, it wasn't just beaten by Iron Lung. Iron Lung made like 10 times as much, which maybe that's apples to oranges. One's a documentary, one's a feature film. But I have a feeling Iron Lung didn't get $35 million in ad money. So maybe it's not so apples to oranges after all. And then of the $2.9 million it made on its opening day, some are looking into the ticket sales, and there seems to be some good evidence that it was bulk purchases, not organic demand for the movie. So veteran box office tracker Tom Brueggemann noted on his Substack that, quote, industry sources say there were signs that blocks of tickets were purchased for the weekend, then distributed to senior citizen homes, Republican activists, other interested parties for free to help boost audiences. Now look, is that a thing that some people do sometimes? Maybe. I haven't heard of a movie doing that, but I'm assuming others have done it. And if they give out the tickets and, I don't know, deluded old people want to see Melania strut about in Prada, then sure. The issue is that don't like pee in my face and then tell me it's raining or whatever. Like, don't pretend that it exceeded expectations when no, it was just that in amidst all the other millions of dollars that they're blowing to make it seem as if this movie's a success, some of those millions went to buying up tickets or whatever. That's not authentic. Be honest about what you're doing. And it is entirely possible that when Jeff Bezos put all that pressure that we reported on at the time in advance of the movie coming out, because they could see that people weren't buying tickets, and he was like, you gotta do something to make this thing a success. Is it possible that they interpreted that to mean buy a bunch of tickets and pretend that people want it? I don't know. I know that I've previously reported on right-wing book bestsellers, and the exact same thing happens. Tens of thousands of copies are bought not by actual readers, but by right-wing nonprofits, think tanks, or whatever. They buy them up in bulk and then they hand them out to people, and maybe some of them get read, but they pretend as if there is organic demand for this stuff when there is not. And then they shove in our face that, oh, all these right-wingers are bestsellers. Where's all the left-wing bestsellers? Well, I don't know, maybe we don't have billionaires buying up all of our books for us. And it looks like that's probably what happened in this case too. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that there wasn't some actual organic drive towards the movies as a result of Melania. There apparently was. It just wasn't for her film. Michelle Obama's documentary apparently rose 13,000% in views on the same weekend that Melania was in the theaters. And that's just on streaming services. It's not like they had to buy up the tickets or whatever. I think people were like, I don't wanna see Melania, but Michelle seemed pretty cool, I'll watch that. I personally am not gonna watch either, but if I had to choose, it's not really a choice. And so that's definitely interesting too. Now, that said, let's talk about a little bit more about what people thought about it. Again, I didn't see it. I know that Bart saw it. Maybe at some point he'll send in a comment about it and I could read it. But for now, The Guardian's Zan Brooks described it as a gilded trash remake of Jonathan Glazer's The Zone of Interest in a 0-star review. It's been struggling overseas, opening at number 29 in the UK and number 31 in Australia, which I just think is so funny. Like, you know how like there's a subset of Americans that are obsessed with British royalty? That evidently does not go the other way. They don't care about our elites at all. And focusing on the UK, ahead of its premiere, UK ticket sales were described as soft, which is definitely the case. And on the day of release, many screenings across the UK were sparsely attended, with the film even playing to empty rooms in several locations over the weekend. However, some screening rooms, namely in View Islington, I'm not familiar with it, were booked up and filled with journalists, people who have to write reviews for it. So they made, on average, after currency conversion, on average less than $300 per screen, which is not how this is supposed to work. And look, are we focusing a lot here on the Damage Report on Melania? Yes, we are, but for a couple of reasons. One, we were told after the 2024 election, all you leftists, all you progressives, you Democrats, you guys don't get it. You're not cool anymore. You know what's cool? Conservatism. In fact, conservatism's sexy. You better get on board, because that's all pop culture is gonna be right now. It's all gonna be conservative and right-leaning, because that's how culture is moving. And you guys need to understand that. No, that was never, obviously that was never gonna be the case. Being conservative is not cool. It damn sure ain't sexy. You can't look in Stephen Miller's Beady Little Eyes and tell me that that's the wave of the future, because it's not. They're not actually selling books. They're not actually selling movies. They're not even selling documentaries. And the other reason I wanna mention this, and I'll move on after this, is so I came across this yesterday. So Bezos blew $70 million on this documentary that no one wants to see. He spends even more money to make it seem as if people wanted to see it when they don't. We reported yesterday in the Washington Post, being the newsroom being cut by a third. And in a podcast I was listening to about that, they referenced that when he bought the Washington Post and people had these high hopes that he was gonna like reinvigorate it. Do you know what he spent on the Washington Post? Like all the Washington Post, the entire thing, the building, the crew, the machines, the IP, the website, all of it, $250 million. The entire Washington Post, one of the most well-respected newspapers in American history, was 3 Melanias in value. And it makes me wonder, if the entire Washington Post is $250 million, I feel like you could have not fired those 300 journalists if you hadn't done the Melania thing. Hell, you could have done the Melania thing and just paid half as much for it. Because whatever you're paying Melania, you're paying too much. And yet, he decided that was a better use of his money, bribing the family of the president, of the dear leader, and then shredding Washington Post for financial reasons. That's what we're being led to believe. Well, as of right now, Rotten Tomatoes has Melania at 6%, which I think is generous. On IMDb, it's at a 1.3 out of 10. Earlier, it was at 1, so it's actually moving up a little bit. It was IMDb's lowest rated movie of all time, which seems aggressive, but perhaps deserved. Okay, with that said, we're gonna move into other news in just a sec. Gargoyle Dragon says, in a super chat, with Musk's exposure in the PDF files, it's not surprising that he doesn't care about kids no matter what. He doesn't even care about his own kids. He should, like, when I think about, so behind the scenes, my daughter is doing like preschool for the first time today, and it needs to happen for a lot of reasons. But like, I'm thinking about how I'm gonna have less time on each weekday with her, and like I spend, I don't know, 8 hours a day with her, 9 hours a day, even when I'm working, and that's my one kid. Do you think he spends 1 hour a day total amidst his dozen plus kids? Who actually thinks that? With all the time that he spends on Twitter and everything, and he has infinite money. He could set it all aside and he could devote himself to spending time with his kids, but he doesn't do it because he doesn't want to do it. And as a person who has a daughter and loves my daughter more than my limited vocabulary can express, I can't express to you how much disdain I have for a person who cares so little about their offspring. It just, I will never understand it. Why you care so little about spending time with them and shaping their life, and perhaps giving them some reason to not come to the same conclusions about the sort of man that you are that all the people that have been forced to witness your actions and your statements have already come to. Anyway, Neon Death tells us, and my producer says that this is true, Trayvon Martin's birthday would be today. He would be 31 today. Wow, he would still be so young. I did not know that Trayvon Martin's birthday was February 5th. And there are a lot of birthdays on February 5th. But thank you for that historic context right there. Okay, let's see. Cabbage says, a leech attached to your face with a tick on it, that's JD Vance, 100%. I don't understand, man, the right, like, he's supposed to like be the next Trump. He doesn't have any of what Trump has. He's fawning and artificial, and like, Trump is terrible. He has almost all, like I've said, and I stand by, Donald Trump is the worst American that's ever lived. But like, he has like a bravado that Vance can't do. Vance is weak to his core, which doesn't exist. He's a hollow shell. He's a chocolate Easter rabbit. There's nothing in there. And I hope at some point that MAGA will wake up to that. Okay, with that said, we're gonna talk about one more bit of news to close out the hour. I'm gonna wet the old whistle, hold on. Okay, let's jump into this. Nancy Mace's desperate attempts to deny her latest scandal blew up in her face almost instantly when a former staffer shared some pictures that Mace would probably prefer she had kept to herself. So after, and we cover this on the show, you can go back and watch our clip. There was a lot of negative stuff about Nancy Mace, but one of the claims, the one that she chose to address, is that she would order her aides to rush out after midnight to make sure that she has alcohol to keep her parties going so she can keep partying. Because despite the fact that she apparently drinks a lot of alcohol and parties constantly, she doesn't like keep her bar stocked at home or whatever. That's the allegation anyway. So she denies that, as you'll see in this clip.
Did you ever ask your staff to make those late night liquor runs or clean your properties?
Absolutely not. Never in either case. It's sort of silly. Like, all these things are provably false. Like, if you have an Airbnb, you usually pay a cleaning crew hundreds of dollars, if not more, every week to clean it. I mean, it's just really silly. And anyone who knows me, I go to bed very early. I'm almost 50. I'm in bed by 8:30 or 9 every night. No one's been over to my house after midnight. Like, you just can't, and these things are provably false if you looked at like my security system and that kind of thing. Here's the other thing too, is that I had to come out with a genetic condition that I've had all my life. I'm not allowed to drink or consume much in the way of alcohol. It's called hemochromatosis. If you do, it'll destroy your organs and you'll die at an early age. And I love life and I love living, and I'm gonna live the healthiest that I can be given the genetic condition I have. And there's no reason for me to consume or imbibe alcohol like they were saying, because it would literally kill me.
So anyway, okay, so she made a lot of claims there in the interview that she was having with the strangest looking full-grown boy I've ever seen in my life. So then none of this stuff could have possibly happened. I mean, look at my security footage. You know that we don't have access to that, right? Like, I can't bring it up on the old computer right now. I mean, if you want to hand over the tapes, I'll look or whatever, but we can't actually see that. Also, the claim that you are making your aides rush out and bring you alcohol for your parties is not actually a claim that you're downing bottles of liquor constantly. Like, there are allegations that she drinks a lot, but you could be doing the one without the other. It could just be that you're so self-obsessed with your social life that you're using them as if they're your employees to get you liquor so other people can drink, which she glosses over. And she focuses instead on a claim of her having hemochromatosis, which does she? I don't know. I'll let you know as soon as I have access to her security footage or whatever. She could present some medical evidence of that. I'm not saying that she's obligated to, but she also isn't. But that said, you're making this claim that you don't drink because to drink would be to kill you. And so then when like the evidence comes out that you do drink, you're gonna look pretty dishonest. Now, she puts out this tweet saying, press should really fact check before running lies. I've got hemochromatosis, look it up. And so she put up this mug that says not tequila, which I'm pretty sure is designed to be ironically drunk by somebody who actually has tequila in it. I don't know. I don't have a lot of novelty mugs necessarily, which is not actually even a true statement, but I don't know. I don't think that's the evidence that you think it is. Like journalists aren't obligated to go through your coffee cabinet before running a story. They had multiple sources on this story. And now we've got multiple sources of evidence that imply that you're lying to us once again. So her former head of communications, Natalie Johnson, tweeted back at her this, which is a number of photos of her appearing to consume alcohol. Some of them, she could just be posing with the alcohol, but in others, she's clearly drinking it, which seems wildly dangerous considering the hemochromatosis that she totally has. By the way, she also put this out. Other people have gotten into the game. Andrew Jarrah said, hey, Nancy, this is her National Drink Wine Day post, which, look, maybe she's at a social event in some of those pictures and she's just holding a drink and maybe it even looks like alcohol, but it's not. You are under no obligation, though, to celebrate National Drink Wine Day. And you know how I know that? Because I've literally never even heard of that holiday before. You're not just a person who consumes alcohol. I think you're making up holidays to justify consuming even more of it. And again, I can't say for sure. Maybe she's got the hemochromatosis or whatever, or maybe she is, as she so often does, just wildly lying again and again and again. And I will also say, while I've enjoyed fact checking this, that was like the least substantive of the many allegations against her, detailing her wild psychological and emotional flaws, the variety of ways that she abuses her staff, the stupid, needless scandals that she generates for herself, let alone the wild, performative transphobia that she engages in. Whether you have hemochromatosis or not, whether you celebrate National Drink Wine Day or not, you're a garbage human being, and no security footage, no doctor's note is gonna change that. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining me for my birthday show. As you can expect, it was a light endeavor, nothing serious or dark, damping down the festivities. But thank you to everybody who sent in comments, both for myself as well as for producer Mike, and for the many other people who evidently share a birthday with us. I did enjoy it quite a bit. Tomorrow, Brett is gonna be here. Let's soak up as much Brett as possible because soon he'll be off to Japan once again, and we won't have him for a few weeks. So we're gonna do some Garbage People of the Week. We're gonna have some fun. Definitely join us for that. For now, though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.